I find politics endlessly fascinating and humbling as well. I mean, we eventually, I assume, we'll come around to the just talk about the midterm
You
elections that
will.
just happened. And one thing that I was reminded of for the 18 millionth time from this experience the last few days is we basically spend 2 months before a big election like the midterms, not even judging a Rorschach blot, but a kind of playing a game of telephone about the ink blot based on many, many polls that then get aggregated. So we're not even looking at the real ink blot. We don't get that until all the votes are counted at the end of the election. So we're like all looking at a smudged sort of like indistinct blot up there on the wall and coming up with these amazing theories about what it means, why it's happening, who's going to do well, who's not going to do well, and why. And we fight terribly about it, all about how we know what's right and the other person's full of shit. And then the election happens, and then they count the votes and we get the results. And then we do that whole thing again about the more distinct blot, which actually is a fact. So this is how they voted. And then we do that for months and project it forward to the next event. Like like I think you've said, I saw a tweet of yours earlier today, like I got this election really wrong. I didn't write a lot about how I was wrong. You did do a post that took a little bit more of a public stance on it. But if you've been following my Substack and my tweets, you knew what I thought. I basically thought, as you did, that we were going to see the Republicans have a wave. The Democrats were going to get a big old spanking. The only question for me was, would it be kind of within the range of a normal midterm repudiation, or would it be much bigger than that? So either 25 to 30 seats in the House going to the Republicans, or 40 or more seats if it was a tsunami. And it turns out, nope. That's not how it worked. And I worked yesterday. I was writing while the votes were being cast. I worked on a 1,500 word op-ed. I hoped for the New York Times with an editor there. I basically pre-wrote a piece about that, about the Democrats getting their asses kicked and why that was a terrible shame, and showed they were wrong. And this is what they need to do better later. Totally unusable, not salvageable, wrote it for the drawer. It's never going to see the light of day. My poor editor was like, I'll read it over and see if we can salvage something from it if you want. I'm like, nope, don't worry. It's written for a different reality than the one we're living in today. And you know what? That was annoying, but it's so great that I was shown once again I don't know what the fuck is going on. Like I do, but like I feel like I'm constantly having to revise and revise again and revise again with 57 variables out there, constantly shifting slightly in a million different directions. And that's what makes politics and studying it fascinating to me.
But what's interesting to me, Damon, is that your response to it, well, the human response to getting something wrong is a certain amount of shame, a certain amount of embarrassment, and then an attempt to prove yourself right again somehow. And then, but or just refusal to admit anything, which is quite common too.
Yeah.
But then there's also the sense of, and I'm not saying this, just it's true that at some point you just chuckle to yourself and remind yourself. So we were just talking about this very thing. We don't know. Doubt about the world is my deepest conviction,
Right.
that we know not enough. And in fact, my book about conservatism was really saying the deepest divide in the world is from those that have a solid element of doubt to them and those that have absolute certainty. And I'm with the doubt people every which way. I've learned that the hard way, even though you can also have passions within that context. But when you're trying to figure stuff out, doubt is essential.